This mother murdered her 3 kids during a psychosis episode. On January 24th, 2023, 32-year-old Lindsay Clancy took the life of her 5-year-old daughter Cora, 3-year-old son Dawson, and 7-month-old baby Callan. On this day at 4:53 p.m., Lindsay asked her husband Patrick to pick up some dinner at a restaurant not too far from the house. About an hour later, Patrick returned home and noticed that there was absolute silence. He called for Lindsay's name, and after no response, he went into the bedroom and noticed that the window was open. Lindsay had jumped out the window in an attempt to take her own life, but she was still alive. This is where things get really sad. Patrick went to the basement and found all 3 kids with exercise cords around their necks. Both Cora and Dawson passed away in the hospital, but baby Callan passed away 3 days later due to his injuries. Lindsay's defense attorney claims that she was suffering from postpartum psychosis, which led her to break from reality and murder her children. But the state attorney argues that these killings were premeditated and that Lindsay sent her husband to get food on purpose so that she can commit these crimes. However, this daycare owner shot her husband twice after she found this out. Shantiri Weems and her husband James owned this daycare called Kids Castle. On July 2022, a woman whose child was attending Kids Castle approached Shantiri and told her that her daughter was being molested by James. Shantiri lost it, and in that moment, she made her way to a hotel in Washington, D.C. where James was staying at and shot him in the neck and thigh. Shantiri admits that her intentions were to paralyze James because she was just so angry. Keep in mind, Shantiri loved kids and her job, and she wanted this daycare to be something where kids felt like they were safe. And she said after seeing the pain in this mother's face, she snapped. James had contact with 93 children, and most of them rode on the daycare bus with him, which is where most of the abuse happened. And this story only gets more disturbing. James was also a retired Baltimore police officer. But ultimately, Shantiri was sentenced to 4 years in prison, and the judge said that she should have never taken the law into her own hands. James, on the other hand, faces 30 counts of child sexual abuse and assault charges.
This was tattooed on a murderer's forehead in prison by the victim's cousin. This is a very disturbing story, so viewer discretion is advised. So on January 25th, 2005, at around 3 p.m., Katie Coleman was asked by her mother to run to a Dollar General. They lived in the small town of Crothersville, Indiana, and it was a very safe town. But later that evening, Katie never returned home. For days, hundreds of people searched the areas around town looking for young Katie, and sadly, on January 30th, a few days after she went missing, she was found dead in a pond. Her hands had been bound behind her back, and there was evidence that showed she had been SA'd before she was killed. So quickly, there was a composite sketch released of the man that they thought abducted and killed Katie. He was 5'8" to 6 feet tall, between 18 to 21 years old, and the same witness said that they were confident they had seen this guy with Katie in a Ford F-150 white pickup truck. Eventually, though, DNA from a cigarette butt found close to Katie's body was linked to a man named Anthony Stockelman. He owned and frequently drove around town a white Ford F-150 pickup truck, and yeah, he was found guilty of killing Katie. But people didn't think that he had faced enough justice. So on September 19th, 2006, a year and a half or so after the murder of Katie, a 22-year-old man named Jared Harris, Katie's cousin, was transferred to the same prison wing that Anthony Stockelman was held in. Now, Jared, after he found this out, threatened Anthony's life, and on September 22nd, 2006, he barricaded himself in Anthony's prison cell and forcibly tattooed Katie's revenge across the killer's forehead. Apparently, Jared told Anthony after putting him in a chokehold that he could either stick him and make him bleed, or he would give him this tattoo. 2 prison guards were actually fired from their positions after leaking this photo to the press, and Jared was eventually charged with battery in this attack. And sadly, a medical provider agreed to remove this tattoo from Anthony's forehead at no cost. But I think that this is definitely good revenge for a crime like this. This is Nicola Priest, a TikToker that was convicted of murdering her own 3-year-old daughter. So back in 2020, Nicola was an active TikTok user. She was constantly posting videos with her daughter, just sharing these fun moments in life of her and her daughter giggling. And she frequently posted videos of she and her daughter dancing. Lots of videos just like these. But on August 9th, 2020, this story takes a sharp and disturbing turn. On that day, Nicola and her boyfriend, Callum Redfern, were in their apartment, and 3-year-old Kaylee Jade Priest did not want to go to bed. Nicola and Caleb were really trying to do the dirty deed, if you know what I mean, but Kaylee Jade would not go to sleep. She kept coming into their room, bothering them. And for some reason, the fact that Kaylee Jade would not go to sleep awakened some sort of primal rage within the two of them. So that evening inside of their home, the two of them beat Kaylee Jade to death together. When her body was found, Kaylee had severe abdominal and chest injuries, and according to investigators, she had been assaulted for a prolonged period of time, meaning she suffered before she died. So after the murder, neighbors came forward and claimed that they had seen Nicola abusing her daughter in public. They had seen her slap and punch her, so nobody can assume or even know what was going on behind closed doors that entire time. But what did Nicola do after her daughter's death? Well, she thought she was in the free and clear, and she immediately in the months afterwards started posting tons of TikTok videos, including this one. Yes, this is a real video where she pretends to care about her daughter's death. Eventually though, after Kaylee's autopsy and some detective work, investigators were able to determine that she wasn't dead from some sort of accident. Her own mother and her boyfriend had killed her. And so the two of them were sentenced to prison terms. Now, the sad thing about this whole story is that Nicola was only sentenced to 15 years in prison. And this was back in 2020, so that means in just 12 years, she'll be out on the streets again in England. I can't fathom how you only get 15 years for murdering your own innocent 3-year-old daughter. It's just beyond me. But yeah, this case just is so sad. It has no happy ending for anybody involved.
I'm getting cheeky with a rifle. I'll pull the trigger with my eyes closed.
This TikToker known as Snow the Salt Queen and Yandere Freak killed her own friend. And she pretty much got away with it. So this is the real Snow the Salt Queen, Mary Ann Oliver Snow. And in January of 2021, she was involved in a tragic shooting. So before all of this went down, Snow the Salt Queen had a massive profile on TikTok with almost 2 million followers. She was constantly posting lip-syncing content, cosplay content, sort of similar to this.
Nobody likes me, everybody hates me, they want me to go eat some more.
Basically videos that were big on TikTok from 2020 to 2021, that kind of era. But this story took a dramatic twist when on January 16th, 2021, Mary, aka Snow the Salt Queen, and 7 of her friends were hosting a watch party for a Batman TV show inside of this house in Houston, Texas. So here's how this all allegedly went down. So at one point during the night, the whole group had been drinking Cokes with vodka. They had been making videos to post on social media, and Mary went out to the garage and retrieved a Glock handgun. Now, according to people that were there, Mary boasted that this gun was almost like the gun that the villain the Penguin has in the Batman movies. And she pretended to shoot one of her friends, pulled the trigger, and for some reason the trigger clicked and the gun didn't go off. But that's when 18-year-old Helen Rose Hastings allegedly, according to Mary, said, "Shoot me." So according to Mary, they were joking around. So she walked over to Helen, placed the pistol right up to her head, and pulled the trigger. Now, according to Mary, she thought that the gun was unloaded, but when she pulled the trigger with the gun up to Helen's forehead, it fired. Now, obviously, this bullet blew through Helen's forehead and she died in the hospital 2 days later. Obviously, Mary was then brought in by the authorities. Now, according to the people that were there who came rushing into the room after the shooting, they all said that this was completely unintentional, this was an accident, but the family of Helen actually thinks that there may have been some sort of evil motive behind the shooting. They've gone on the record and said that their daughter would never ask anybody to shoot her. She's even suggested that Mary and the other people that were there at the party may have had time to actually get their stories straight before calling the police, so they had one narrative that ran through the night. But regardless, after that party, a person was dead. And shortly afterwards, Snow the Salt Queen started posting to their social media again with a lot of tasteless images. This is actually one of the images that Mary posted after the murder, which shows bloody handprints on a wall behind her. So there's no real resolution in this case yet. Mary has been charged with manslaughter, but I couldn't find anything about a verdict or any developments in this case really since it made the headlines back in 2021. So I'll update you guys if something happens in this case.
Happy birthday to This footage hides the most disturbing secret. It was taken on August 12, 2000 in Vallejo, California. The girl in the window is 8-year-old Mitzi Sanchez. She looks happy in her father's arms, surrounded by friends and family. But on her birthday, Mitzi's life will take a shocking turn for the worse. 12 years earlier, Amber Swartz Garcia is playing jump rope in her front yard in Pinole, California, when she's abducted in broad daylight. After years of searching with no solid leads, the 7-year-old is presumed dead. Her body is never found. December 9, 1999, 11 years after the disappearance of Amber, 7-year-old Ziana Fairchild goes missing after witnesses saw her talking to a man at a Vallejo gas station. 1 year passes, and still Ziana is nowhere to be found.
I miss you guys.
For over 12 years, the state of California is terrorized by a serial killer targeting children. Having made 8 victims already, no one knows where he will strike next. But on August 12, 2000, 8-year-old Mitzi Sanchez will become the last victim of the serial killer. She will be forever known as the one who escaped and brought him to justice.
Vallejo police are again asking for the public's help tonight in locating a missing 8-year-old girl.
To the person who took my daughter, I don't care what they done to her, just bring her back to me. I just want to see my daughter again.
There was someone out there that was hunting children. We needed to find that person.
Missy, if you're watching, I love you. Please come home.
It's December 9th, 1999. In the quiet town of Vallejo, California, Mitzi Sanchez lives a normal life with her parents and her 3 siblings. 7:30 a.m., less than 2 miles away from where Mitzi lives, 7-year-old Ziana Fairchild disappears on her way to school. Police follow every possible lead to try and find the missing girl, to no avail. After months of investigation with the help of the FBI, the case grows cold. Ziana Fairchild is presumed dead. August 10, 2000, 8 months after the disappearance of Ziana, Mitzi Sanchez leaves for school at around 7:30 a.m. It's Mitzi's birthday, and her mother Susanna is preparing a party for her. At around 4 p.m., Mitzi's sister begins to worry that she hasn't come home from school yet and calls her mother. After reaching out to teachers and friends, Susanna understands that her daughter is missing. The entire family starts to worry, calling everyone they can to ask for help in searching for the 8-year-old girl. When police arrive, flyers are already being handed out in the neighborhood, people knocking on every door, but there's no trace of her. August 11th, 24 hours have passed since Mitzi went missing. The sheriff's department receives a phone call from a landfill worker who claims to have seen bloody clothing in one of the truck dumps. Investigators discover the cloth belonged to a Vallejo motel. They fear the worst for Mitzi and Ziana. But as the police scour the landfill, no further evidence is found. Time is running out. August 12th, 2 days since Mitzi was taken, at around 11 a.m., the sheriff's office receives a call from a man named Carl Tafwa, who says an 8-year-old girl jumped in front of his truck and says to have been kidnapped. He also has the license plate number of the car from which the girl has escaped. When police ask for the name of the girl, she says her name is Mitzi Sanchez.
She comes running to the truck saying, "Help me, I've been kidnapped from Vallejo." She was pretty frightened when she jumped in my truck. I mean, she really thought that guy was going to come and try to kill her.
With the license plate number given to police by the truck driver, the search focuses on one man, Curtis Anderson. Apparently, police know Anderson very well.
He is a 3-strikes candidate, having been convicted of theft and kidnapping.
The location where Mitzi was rescued is close to Anderson's former place of employment. According to a colleague, he came in to ask for a heavy-duty garbage bag.
So